Hey guys, Taylor Doll here. We are back with another episode of Making Monsters. Times have been tough around here lately, and now Bears on a losing streak against three teams that they really truly thought they could beat and probably should have beat. But they really get exposed against the Patriots, can only score 3 points. So that's not fun. This leading to offensive coordinator Shane Waldron getting fired. Now Thomas Brown taking over. He was the passing game coordinator, previously running back coach, tight end coach. So we're all kind of hoping that because of that, things change a little bit and we start seeing more of this up tempo, quick passes, more Cole Kmet, lean on running the ball. Don't make Caleb have to do so much. You let him have those short passes rather than trying to force some things down the field right now and then let those things down the field open naturally. So we'll see how much change, but it's the Green Bay Packers. It's Packers hate week, no matter what. They haven't won since 2018, but I'm here to still hate on the Packers forever. I will say Green Bay sucks. I don't care if we lose by 50. To me, they still suck because I hate them. But anyways, I'm going to talk to Peter Bukowski. He is the host of Locked On Packers, and so we'll have him on in a little bit. We'll preview this Bears Packers game. I know they just kind of sit back and laugh at us a lot and how much things are a hot mess and how Matt LaFleur just keeps doing it and how they just keep getting offensive linemen and how they just keep getting quarterbacks. And I think there are some exposable aspects, maybe more so on the defensive side. They do have some guys beat up on the offensive line. Jair Alexander, we'll see if he plays. That's something you could obviously take advantage of. The Jags, who have struggled a lot this year, were able to put up, I think it was 27 on them. So we will see. I'm not saying I think the Bears could beat the Packers because I don't think the Bears can ever beat the Packers until they prove to me that they consistently do it. I don't think they can. It's just something in the water that it's really hard for them to pull out in this last 20, 25, 30 years beating Green Bay. So anyways, I am going to talk to Peter though, because there are some things that I want to talk about when it comes to what Matt LaFleur does when using the wide receivers over there. There's several. There's not a true number one wide receiver, in my opinion, but there's multiple good wide receivers. And then Tucker Kraft's been good this year. Josh Jacobs obviously has been good this year. So we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about that defensive front, the pass rush, who both the Cardinals and the Patriots were able to just absolutely crush our offensive line. Some of the Bears back at practice this week on the offensive line. We'll see how healthy some of those guys are. So there are question marks there. They just put Jaquan Brisker on IR, but Elijah Hicks actually has been playing pretty good. I tweeted out some numbers earlier. He's one of the best tacklers in the league when it comes to the safeties and that tackling number, according to PFF. I think he's like the third or fourth highest. He's a top 15 when it comes to run stop, a little deeper. I think like 22nd out of the safeties, out of like 89 though, when it comes to the actual coverage rate. So he's playing well, though, and he was a 7th-round pick out of Cal, and I think that you have to give him his credit, though, because Brisker is a big when he's not in. I was highly concerned, and he's been able to step up. He had no picks yet, so I would love to kind of just like manifest. Let's manifest a little Elijah Hicks turnover here this week. Jordan Love's been throwing a lot of them, so just give one over to Elijah Hicks. I'd love that. Anyways, we're going to do a quick give some love to Underdog Fantasy, and then we're going to get over to this interview with Peter Bukowski and talk that team from Wisconsin that we all hate. But let's talk some Underdog first. Give them some love. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones are ice cold? Make your entries in just a few taps and turn your sports opinions into real money. One of the features that I like, Red Zone Rush, a game you won't find anywhere else. Just pick whether or not a player will score a touchdown by swiping right for yes, left for no. Simple as that. Plus, your entry will automatically be boosted, and you'll get a 51% profit boost when you play. Another thing I like Underdog puts the power to cash out in your hands. So now you can either keep writing on with your entry, or you can type that win now button to cash out whenever you want. Obviously, love that because you can get the money right away. Underdog is the best place to play champions. So sign up and deposit now. You can use promo code CITY, that's CITY, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code CITY, CITY. Let's look at this weekend and see. You guys know I love that higher or lower, pick, because it just is something that I feel like is super easy, especially when you're on the app. So let's talk about Caleb Williams. Only a half passing touchdown is what it is right now. You can go higher or lower on that. You could go 1.5 passing touchdowns on Jordan Love if you want. Josh Jacobs, we've been getting absolutely gutted by running back. 70.5 rushing yards. You can push that higher and probably, most definitely, most likely win some money this weekend. Let's go Rome Odunze. Let's talk about some Rome. I've been waiting for more Rome. 2.5 receptions, higher or lower. 33.5 receiving yards, higher or lower. Lots of ways we can go this weekend with this Packers matchup. So download the app today and use code CITY to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's CITY, CITY, for $1,000 bonus cash. Just remember, it's every player, every certain thing that you like. I just said that number, the Rome Odunze number. Let's go maybe higher on that 2.5 receptions, just because I feel like with Thomas Brown, we'll get some more offense than we've seen the last few weeks. But you must be 18 and up, 19 and up in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 and up in Colorado for some games, 21 in Massachusetts, 21 and up in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. And if you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. If you're in Arizona, that's 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. If you're in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. So there you go. That's Underdog Fantasy for you. You can go win some money on the game this weekend if you like. But now it's time to talk to Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers and get this rivalry week going. All righty, guys. So let's continue on this Bears versus Packers. Packers hate week is what we like to call it, but I guess every week is Packers hate week. We're joined by Peter Bukowski. Peter, from Locked On Packers. Thank you for joining me.
I'm glad to be here. This is a little home and home for us because you were on my show the other week, actually talking Jags, because that's your home market. So I'm excited to do this. Talk a little Packers Bears.
Yeah, I messaged you and I was like, do you want to talk about the hot mess that is the Chicago Bears right now? I don't think it's not anything new at this point. We're used to it. I feel like you guys just sit back and laugh because it is what it is. But let's start there. I mean, I think that offensive coordinator getting fired, there's some changes when it comes to obviously that side of the ball. I don't know how much life that's going to bring, but there was clearly some issues between players and Shane Waldron. So what are your thoughts on just that initial, the OC getting fired midseason, which is the first time the Bears have actually fired a coach midseason?
Yeah, I'm surprised because I'm surprised the Bears did it. But I'm not surprised in that this is a CYA move all the way. This is Matt Eberflus saying, please don't blame me for the problems that are going on here, even though we know he is partially to blame for the problems going on here, because it's not just the offensive coordinator, right? Like it's not just that. We've heard players explicitly call out coaching decisions in the media, and not just like offensive play calls or game plans. I'm talking about like go kick decisions and timeout decisions. This Matt Eberflus has this job in part because he was supposed to be a galvanizing force. That was part of the reason that you brought him back in the first place, right? So if he's not doing that, then it's time to go talk to the Bobs, because the question is, what is it that you'd say you do here exactly? Now, the defense is good, so that's part of it, but it does seem like Matt Eberflus is one of those 4A defensive coordinators where I think he is a very good defensive coach. They play with a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Poles has done a very good job of getting players in there, even if I think he kind of overspent at linebacker. But and Eberflus is doing better than the previous coaches have at getting this defense to be Bears level defense, right? Like this is who the Bears have been for time immemorial. So This is organizing deck chairs on the Titanic, but the metaphor I heard from someone was, I think it was Bill Barnwell said, that's true, but the chairs were like ripped and thrown all over the place. Like it wasn't like they just needed to be rearranged for feng shui reasons. Like it was an entire mess. And now, like, at least they'll be standing upright, even though the shit's going down.
But yeah, good metaphor. And I think a lot of people, Peter, it's no surprise that a lot of people after last season wanted Eberflus gone. Yeah. And now you feel like you're in the same cycle that's been haunting the Bears of you go back and you talk about John Fox and then drafting Trubisky and then having to fire him and then getting, keeping Nagy and then getting Fields and then having to fire him. And then now you're literally in the exact same spot again of probably having to fire your head coach and then your young rookie quarterback having another, probably third offensive coordinator now next year and then another head coach. So yeah, it's a hot mess. But look,
can I ask you a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mean to hijack the interview.
No, you're good.
But I threw out a take yesterday, and I'm surprised I didn't get more Bears fans pushing back on this. I said, are we sure Matt Nagy didn't get blamed for Justin Fields being a bust? Because they win 12 games with Mitch Trubisky. I understand he did not do it, but he was the quarterback. And then they made the playoffs again.
Yeah.
With Mitch Trubisky. They draft Justin Fields. That's supposed to fix everything. And it turns out Justin Fields is just not very good. Did the Bears give up on Matt Nagy because of Justin Fields? I guess it's not really a take. I'm asking a rhetorical question, but I kind of wonder if that's real.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think we floated around before. My thing with Nagy is even with Trubisky, things kind of started falling apart. That 2018 season, really fun. Like the offense felt creative and it actually worked around Mitch Trubisky's strengths, and the defense helped because they got a ton of turnovers and scored a lot. And all of that obviously factors into helping a rookie quarterback, or a young quarterback. Yeah. But I do think the next year things just kind of fell short, and it got to the point where Trubisky told him that he benched Trubisky. It turned into this hot mess. And then, you get Justin Fields too. I don't think it was all Justin. I don't think it was all Nagy. I was always someone that was kind of like, we're cursed, honestly. Like it's just never going to work. There were really good moments of Matt Nagy, but I think there did come a point where he lost the locker room. And I feel like once you do that, it's hard to get them back.
Yeah.
And so I do think it was more factoring into that. I also do think I always said he was a good head coach. Oh, shoot. I thought I just deleted everything. I always said he was a good head coach, but not the best play caller, because even in the back and forth, like he kind of gave play calling back to Bill Lazor and it worked for a few weeks. And then he was like, never mind, I want it back. And then it went back to what it was. So I also think there's some selfishness going on, which happens. Like it's a lot of egos in the NFL, and you see it everywhere where the guys are like, no, my way is the right way. And sometimes it's not. But yeah, believe me, that's something we've all been talking about, like the chicken or the egg situation. Like what's the scenario here?
Yeah.
But let's talk some Packers. That's obviously what's going on this weekend. The Bears have not beat the Packers since December of 2018. So it's been a very long time. I was at that game.
LaFleur has never lost to the Bears.
Yeah, it's not ideal on our side, but let's start with some of the injury report came out today. Several Jair Alexander limited in both Wednesday and Thursday. Is it looking like he will be out there this weekend, you think?
Optimistic was the reporting from The Athletic. Matt LaFleur does a weekly radio show with Matt Schneidman of The Athletic, and he said on that show that they're hopeful that that Ja and Evan Williams, who was actually on Locked on Packers this week, he was great on Locked on Packers this week. They're expecting him back, and that's huge for this Packers defense because it slots everything into place, right? So they started the season with Javon Bullard playing safety next to Xavier McKinney, who's been like a defensive player of the year candidate. And they lost Ja. And what they did was against the Rams, they moved Keyshawn Nixon from the slot to the boundary. They moved Javon Bullard, who played slot corner at Georgia before playing safety his last year at Georgia, into the slot. And they moved Evan Williams into the starting lineup. And that locked in the best version of this Packers defense. Evan Williams has been, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades, and I know everyone's mileage varies on that, but Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams have been two of the 5 best safeties by PFF grade. And I think that matches the eye test. Evan Williams has just been a revelation since he's come in. And then Bullard gives them a physical safety-like presence in the slot while being capable enough handling receivers in the slot. So And Keyshawn Nixon has been way better than we expected as a
Yeah.
boundary corner. So if Jair Alexander is healthy, and I think more importantly, if Evan Williams is healthy, because then that allows Bullard to be in the slot and it moves Keyshawn Nixon outside where I think he's a better player. That allows this defense to have everyone sort of play where they belong.
Good
Plus
decline.
this,
Yeah.
yeah, and the safety play mitigates some of the issues that they have at linebacker, where Quay Walker has never lived up to that first round billing. They really like Edgerrin Cooper, but there's some how do I phrase this? There are some concerns that he just doesn't quite have a refined process for preparation.
Okay.
He's a really good kid. He's a really hard worker, but I don't know that he has the best process for getting prepared on Sundays. And I think it's partially because he's just such a good athlete. Like when you see him play, he had a play against the Jaguars where he feinted a blitz in the A gap as an A gap mug player. And he gets down as the middle field post runner in Tampa 2 and gets a PBU on Christian Kirk on a seam route. And I asked Evan Williams after we're done recording, I said, how many other linebackers in the NFL do you think could make that play? And he said, none. So like, that's where the physical ability is.
Yeah.
It's
so sometimes they're like, okay, well, I can do it all naturally, so I don't have to put in that much work.
Yeah, and again, I don't. It's not that I don't think he doesn't put in the work. I think that he just hasn't found the process that works quite right for him. Like, did you ever have, or maybe you experienced this? I know I did, where like it kind of didn't matter how much work you put in. Like I had a class in college where it was just like it didn't matter how much I studied. It wasn't clicking for me. I didn't find the right process. Whether it was the teacher, whether I just couldn't quite lock in. That might be where he is with some of these concepts. It's his first year.
Yeah.
And linebackers in college play fake linebacker. Like they don't play actual linebacker. Like what they're asked to do is not what they're asked to do in the NFL. I think he'll get there.
Yeah.
And he has the ability to be one of those truly difference-making players at the position. So they're really excited about him. I think he's going to be an important part in this game. Because what we saw New England do is they brought in a special teams player who could run to spy Caleb. And they had a little robber coverage, and then he turned into not just a robber, but then a spy.
Yeah.
And there was a play where he got the sack on Caleb. And Edgerrin Cooper, like you go back and watch him against Alabama, and he chased down Jalen Milroe in the backfield. Yeah. Jalen Milroe runs like 4.3. So I think they could use Cooper in a somewhat similar way where just sort of shadow Caleb. And when it looks like he's taking an extra split second to hold on to the ball, just fly downhill and see if you can make something happen. I think that's something that could work for Green Bay.
It is interesting because we just had a whole conversation today on Helmets and Heels, actually, about how like the offensive struggles in the NFL and what may be leading to that. And we had a whole discussion about linebackers because I was like, the linebackers now are just so athletic. And so sometimes I think it does take a little extra longer because they're getting asked, like they're dropping back into coverage, they're stopping the run, they're doing all of this stuff, they're blitzing sometimes, they're all over the place. So it's fun to watch, but I do think it takes a little bit longer sometimes than just having these old school, big, rugged, like mauler type linebackers, like, and that's what Chicago's used to. Like, that's what they used to have. So they've even had to kind of adjust to what you're used to when it comes to that linebacking room. But so it will be interesting. Secondary, something to keep an eye on, obviously, when it comes to the Bears and being able to get anything done offensively, because it's been a little bit since that's happened. But when it comes to the Packers side of the line, the offensive line, several players on the injury report this week too, including Elgton Jenkins, but he was limited today. So that seems like it's moving in the positive direction. The offensive line
that was just a rest day for Elgton Jenkins. So nothing to really worry about there. Rasheed Walker has been dealing with something. He was on the injury report for the Lions and ended up playing. Jordan Morgan's been dealing with a shoulder injury all year. Okay. And he's been in a bit of a rotation. He's not really the starter right now. That's Sean Ryan at right guard. So I would say offensive line wise, the injuries are not a huge deal, but we know what this pass rush is capable of. Montez Sweat coming back, it looks like he's going to play. It seems like he's trending in that direction to play this week. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the front, when it comes to the pass rush, it's been decent, hasn't been great, but I think Bears fans were expecting that because it pretty much was like Montez and then question. Like
you're still one short. That was the problem.
Yeah. Is it Darrell Taylor? He's had some moments this year. DeMarcus Walker's had some moments this year, but not anything that is scaring, like
I
super
kind of
scary
like
to the
Darrell
point.
Taylor as a player. I liked him in Seattle too.
I honestly, like, I didn't know much about him, and then when we got him the first couple weeks, I was like, "Okay, this guy actually looks pretty good." And he's been consistent. The problem is nobody can stop the run whatsoever on the
Yeah,
defensive
what's
line.
going on there? Like
I
they were doing okay to start the year, and then
It's been bad.
it's been really bad. I mean, they're 30th by DVOA stopping the run. It's terrible.
And against like everybody we've talked to the last couple of weeks, when we've talked to the Patriots, when we've talked to the Cardinals, they're like, yeah, there's been issues in being able to run the ball. And I'm like, don't worry, like you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to do it this week. And you'll also get to the quarterback, I promise you. And that's one of the things, obviously, right now that is a major problem in Chicago is there's not hardly a starter playing at this point on the offensive line because
Yeah.
Braxton's hurt, Darnell Wright's hurt, Tevin's now beat up, Nate Davis just got traded, so you're on the backup there. The only lineman that's played all season has been Coleman Shelton, the center, who is all right. So I feel like this is a game where Green Bay can kind of feast, which is what scares me.
And I would say, Green Bay's pass rush has been underwhelming this year in the new scheme with Jeff Hafley. They're not playing, widening the ends and saying wide nine, let's just go attack. It's been a little less of that than I think we expected. But what they have been good at is simulated pressures where they might show 6, even 7 and bring 4, but it's not the 4 you think. And for a Bears offensive line that has been nightmarish sorting out those sorts of exactly those sorts of plays, or just a simple game, just a simple like TE stunt, those kinds of things, they haven't been able to sort out. And part of that is just continuity, right? Like when you're not playing together, it's really hard to do that. Like I almost don't blame them because, it's not a great group, even when healthy, but when you're having to shuffle in guys constantly, that's where it really, like, continuity at offensive line is probably the place where continuity matters the absolute most.
Yep.
And when you have none of it, I think it's also probably the place where the backups relative to the starters, there's the biggest delta other than maybe like quarterback, where like backup offensive linemen generally suck. Like they're generally really, really bad. Especially when they're how many teams, 10 or 15 teams probably don't have 5 starting caliber offensive linemen to start with.
We don't.
And then you're putting in a backup who is like not even good enough to start on a line where you don't have 5 starting caliber guys. Like that is problematic. And that's that's a league problem right now, right? Like that's the CBA. And that's why I know that for Bears fans, especially, it's very frustrating to see the Packers just like cycle through.
Keep doing it.
Oh, here's the next guy. Oh, Zach Tom in the 5th round. No big deal. Oh, Rasheed Walker in the 7th round, starting caliber left tackle. Not a problem. Like their worst player right now on the offensive line is probably Josh Myers. And he's like their 2nd round pick and he's the center and he's been totally fine this year. Like he's actually been a decent to above average center. So, the style of play, I think, is what should be concerning for Bears fans because Jeff Hafley is he knows he wants to play with those offensive line rules. He did it against the Titans, where he used Edgerrin Cooper a lot of double mug A stuff. And if they don't have answers, it's going to be tough. I wonder if some of the answers that they'll go to, some of the short passes, which I think they probably need to, like, hey, Caleb, how about here's an RPO that you ran in at USC 100 times that we've never called this year for whatever reason. That can just help sort things out because it's just let's read the conflict defender and either hand the ball off or throw that little glance post in behind. Like easy. Just make it easy.
And that's what we're hoping. It seems like that will be the route Thomas Brown will want to go. He's a former running back tight ends coach. So the weirdest thing about the Bears the last few weeks is Cole Kmet's had like 2 targets in 3 games. Why? Don't know. Also, like you want to lean on DeAndre Swift a little bit more when you aren't, like when the pass game isn't going the way it was. I've liked Swift. It took him a few weeks to get going, but he's been able to become a little bit closer to what people thought. But my whole thing is in the 3 weeks where everything was working, it was a lot of, to your point, a lot of no huddle, a lot of up tempo, a lot of just Caleb get this ball out fast. Because I saw some stat where it was like when he got the ball out under whatever it is under at 2 seconds, then his passer rating was like 120. When it's beyond 3 seconds, when he's holding the ball, his passer rating is like 30 or something. Like it's a drastic difference when he's sitting there and having to go through these progressions right now. And find anybody who gets separated compared to when he can just get those quick release, get those 6, 7, 8 yards. So we'll see how much Thomas Brown shifts to what kind of felt like it was working those few weeks and what wasn't. But I think a lot of it is the protection. And when you don't have that protection, then it's just nobody can really function around that. But especially a guy who kind of seems like he's gotten in his head now the last few weeks. A few more before I let you go, because I do obviously want to talk about Jordan Love. Jordan Love has on the higher end of picks this year so far on the season, but then he'll do some really incredible things too. What's the thought on Jordan right now? Because also at the end of last year, I think he had a stretch of like 7 games where there was no turnovers. So what is going on, and is there concern at all?
So internally, there does not seem to be concerned. I asked Matt LaFleur about this after the Rams game. He gets asked about it every week, it seems. Yeah. And every week he's just sort of like, stop asking. Like, that's his attitude about it. Yeah. So if Matt LaFleur is not worried about it, I'm not really worried about it. But at the same time, what you've seen is, and look, the Packers are not going to make excuses about the injury. They're not. But I will, because I get to. And so if you look at the play from Jordan Love with play action, they're actually better this year off play action than they were last year. He's 7th in EPA per dropback with play action. They were 10th last year. The biggest difference is without play action. He's 22nd in EPA per pass without play action this year. He was 8th last year. Wow. So whatever you want to say about Jordan Love's first season, it's Matt LaFleur, all that stuff. When you take away the easy button stuff and you just say you got to drop back and make throws, he was really good last year. And he was very good under pressure. He has not been very good under pressure this year. In fact, he's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league under pressure this year. You know who's like that? Matthew Stafford. He will have years where he just like is dialed in every play under pressure. Like 2021, he made every right decision under pressure because he's going to throw in windows that do not exist for other quarterbacks. Yeah. And Jordan Love is the same way. He wants to make every throw because he can make every throw. And so he needs to chill out a little bit with some of that stuff. Like, it's just like the oh my God, what just happened? I blacked out interceptions. Like the ones where the pick six against the Rams in particular was a bad one. I don't think the Lions one was as bad as people think. It looked worse on TV because it looked like he threw it right to him. If you watch the end zone view, he can't actually see Kirby Joseph because he's behind an offensive lineman. So like 6'5", 300 blots out the sun when you're talking about, 6 feet, 195. So it was, I think it was an reckless play that he got very unlucky, turned into a pick six, right? So like both of those things can be true. Yeah. His turnover worthy play rate is up, but only like, I wouldn't say marginally, but if you look at it, he's a full percentage point in turnover worthy play rate below Jalen Hurts, who has half as many interceptions as Jordan Love. So part of it is just being unlucky a little bit. And I think in the course of the second half, I mean, that stretch you talked about, that Lauren Cox on Locked On Bears likes to call it Toyota-thon Jordan Love. It was 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. Yeah. Pretty remarkable stretch. And in fact, the only 2 quarterbacks who have ever had a stretch of games that productive with that few interceptions in their first year as starters, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, ever. That's the list with Jordan Love. So I don't think he's suddenly become bad under pressure. I don't think he's suddenly become more reckless than he was last year when the circumstances around him were much worse. I think he's hurt. And first it was the knee. And if you're the kind of guy who can make second reaction throws, who can reset in the pocket, move violently up and make a throw, or move violently to your left or right, and you can't move violently, you can't move with twitch. He's such a twitchy athlete. Throwing the ball. Like we think about like corners and receivers as twitchy. He's a twitchy thrower. And if you can't do that, if you can't be that, like look at the Detroit game. He made a throw in the 2-minute and couldn't even run down to get it spiked. I thought they were going to have to Byron Leftwich him in that. Like I was like, this is crazy. Cause he couldn't move. Yeah. And so it's not a coincidence that the offense has looked its best in the 2 games between the injury where you have the furthest distance. So the Cardinals game looks a lot better, that they beat the crap out of the Cardinals in retrospect, right? The Cardinals haven't lost since that game. And then the Texans, he threw 3 touchdowns against the Texans, leads them right down the field at the end, game-winning field goal, and just like they sauntered down the field
Yeah.
to get that game-winning field goal, and then he gets hurt against Jacksonville. Now he wasn't playing great, but he also played for another full quarter after he tweaked his groin and made a couple of like holy shit throws.
Yeah.
And so he's still a special thrower of the ball.
Yeah.
It's the blackout interceptions that you got to cut down.
Believe me, we had that conversation in Jacksonville because everyone was like, oh, like we almost beat the Packers. I was like, let's take it back like a little bit. He was on one leg practically, and then it was Malik Willis.
He really was.
Yeah. Receiver wise, because I think that this is one of the more fascinating receiving cores in the league to me, just because I feel like between you have a Christian Watson, you obviously hit Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. Between those three guys, I feel like every game it's somebody else who is doing something who feels like they could be that number one. Do you think one of these guys is leading to be that true number one, or do you think they'll always be able to just kind of have this balance between them?
I've changed my thinking on this. Okay. I thought it was really cool that Matt LaFleur ran the most egalitarian offense in the league. I thought it was cool that on any given Sunday, anyone could be a 100-yard rusher or a 100-yard receiver. Like the first 100-yard receiver for the Packers last year was Bo Melton, a player you didn't even mention, a player that wasn't even on their roster in August.
I also didn't even say Dontavian Wicks right now. So
right. And I think Wicks was the next guy to go over 100. So it's like from that point on, from that Vikings game on, they had 4 different guys have 100 yards receiving.
Yeah.
But I have come to believe that they need to lean more into their top guys, that they need to lean more into Christian Watson. They need to lean more into Jaden Reed, who I think is a really, really, really good player. But I think he is better suited as a Devontae Smith to someone else's AJ Brown. And they don't have AJ Brown on this team. So can they get from Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson the sort of facsimile of AJ Brown, the vertical element they have with Christian Watson, some of the route running elements and contested catches they have with Romeo Doubs? I'd like to see them sort of lean into that and let Dontavian Wicks, who is the worst contested catch receiver in the league this year. He has not made a single contested catch. He has 9 targets on contested catches, has not made one. Is one of the league leaders in drops, and yet he's got one of the best open scores. He's like, by any of the Pro Football metrics, the ESPN metrics, he's open all the time, but is having trouble securing the ball, which is kind of the core function of a receiver, is to catch the ball, is to receive the ball, right? Yes. So I think they need to lean into those guys in an effort to, at the very least, manufacture a number one receiver. I think Jaden Reed can be the focal point of your offense, but if he is, then you need Tucker Kraft to be really, really good. You need him to be Mark Andrews, which, by the way, I think he can be. Like, he's a really, really good football player, and dynamic in a way that I don't think people realize coming out of college. Like that 70-yard one against the Rams, where he just runs away from everybody. You're just sort of like, he can do that. Okay, like that's a different thing. So,
how well do you think LaFleur is mixing him in at this point?
I think he could do more, Tucker Kraft, frankly. Okay. I'd like to see them design more opportunities for him. Most of what they do with him is he's the outlet. And he's a great outlet because he can catch the ball 2 yards from the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden it's 20 because he made one guy miss and then ran over another guy. And you're like, wait, how did that happen? There's been more than one 3rd and 10 that he's converted on a swing, like little chip release where he catches the ball and has to like make 2 guys miss. But I'd like to see him be a bigger part of their offense. They ran this really cool play. I wrote about it today over at The Leap. And it was like a little play action concept where they pulled Elton Jenkins around, but then they snuck Tucker Kraft the other way. So the linebackers think it's power to their left, and they sneak Tucker Kraft back. It's not true leak, but they sneak Tucker Kraft back across where those linebackers are vacated. He's wide open, and it's like a 30, 40-yard play because there's no one over there. Yeah. I'd like to see them do a little bit more of that, just scheming him up opportunities, kind of the way that the 49ers use George Kittle. Like the 49ers don't say, hey, George, go play the X on the backside of the formation and just beat a corner one-on-one. Like, he's not Travis Kelce. They scheme him up opportunities. I think the Packers could do that more with Tucker.
I would like to see the Bears do anything creative like that. So we'll see. Okay, final one before I let you go, because I can't let you go without talking about Josh Jacobs. I think that this, to me, honestly, was one of my I'll say least favorite signings of the offseason because he was going to the Packers, but I loved Josh Jacobs. So, and I feel like I said, that's to me the Bears' biggest weakness on defense. I'm very confident in the secondary. Jaquan Brisker just went on IR. He hasn't played in like 6 weeks already anyways. And Elijah Hicks, a 7th round safety.
Jaquan Brisker. You feel for him.
It's and he's just one of those guys that brought that extra like level of energy defensively too. So it sucks. But Elijah Hicks, 7th round pick, has actually played pretty well the last few weeks in for Brisker. So they just kind of it's weird having a GM who's also like an offensive lineman and he's found all the defensive players, but hasn't been able to find the offensive players. So interesting. But the secondary,
heal thyself.
Yes. The secondary I'm pretty confident in. I think most people are, even in after a bad game, they still sit atop in most categories. But the run game I'm scared of. So that honestly is what really freaks me out this weekend.
Yeah, I said this on a stream I did the other day. The thing about being bad on run defense, and the Bears are 30th by run defense DVOA, is I think sometimes offensive coaches, when they go up against a passing defense that is bad, they still want to play with balance.
Yeah.
And so they won't do the thing that they should, which is just like throw it 60 times. But when they go against a team with a bad run defense, they will always
hand it
off. And Matt LaFleur is one of those coaches. Like we saw it against the Colts. He knew the Colts could not stop them, even with Malik Willis, even playing single high. They ran the ball 40 plus times. They ran it for a team record, like 250 plus yards. And I have faith that in a game like this, Josh Jacobs is going to get 20 plus carries. And it's that more than anything is going to help them with Jordan Love's turnovers, whatever, because they just know they can get 5-6 yards a crack against this defense. And then the cool thing is, for the Packers, not the Bears, is the passing plays that the Bears do give up are explosives.
Yeah.
And so if you're running the ball effectively, and this is why you run the ball effectively, now it's play action time. And especially if you're in single high, now those rail shots, those sideline throws are there, or you've got, Jaden Reed, the Packers have gotten loose against single high coverage a couple of times, running that big deep over, and they have someone running a shallow route on the other side. So that corner's occupied in zone coverage. And now it's Jaden versus a safety, which is really Jaden versus grass.
Yeah.
And Jaden Reed runs 4.39. So he usually wins that battle. I think that's going to be the key here. I don't think the Bears can score enough points to win this game, candidly.
Yeah.
I think the Packers can, because I think they can run the ball effectively. So I think the Packers win by 10 or more in this game. And also, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I can't remember, even in years where they were god awful, vibes this bad in Chicago. I can't, like guys walking off the field in disgust, publicly undermining the coach.
Yeah.
Like it kind of boggles my mind that this is not helping Caleb Williams up off the ground. I mean, those things, that's inexcusable stuff. Like that's we've quit on this coach and this season. And that's why I don't think there's a dead cat bounce coming from the OC being fired. I think this is untenable. I think this is unwinnable from a season standpoint. Not that the Bears couldn't win this game. They certainly could. It's an NFL game.
Yeah.
But I think they've reached the point of no return. I think it's just over for them.
Yeah. And that's what it's frustrating. And I was talking to someone like how drastically it dropped between like but prior to these last 3 games, it felt like things were just going great. We're like, okay, this offense looks good. The defense obviously is being talked about as one of the better ones in the league. Things are starting to mesh. Shane Waldron seemed like
it's annoying. The passing defense is very good. It is annoying.
That's like the only thing we really have to look forward to at this point. And I just actually did a podcast with the guy that created DVOA, and he's like, Jalen Johnson's the #1 corner in coverage in DVOA this year and last year. And he's like, that's never happened since I've started covering this. There's never been back-to-back years where the same corner is that. And it's just like, and they obviously factor in, the DVOA number. So it's not like you can just say, well, he's not getting targeted, because they factor in all of those little things. So that's one thing that we can look forward to. That's why I'm like, I'm not really even scared of Jordan Love this game. I'm scared of Josh Jacobs just literally having 220 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. But anyways, thank you, Peter.
Start Josh Jacobs in fantasy.
Yeah, for real. I appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.